Bears fans rejoice. The executive core that has held the team back for years is still here, but you have Justin Fields now. It may force you to keep with that shitty executive core for a few more, but Justin Fields! I'd share your optimism, but remember the team you root for here. The Chicago Bears are one of the more ass-backwards organizations in football. And the best way to exemplify it is with the QB position. The fans want the Red Rifle dead. It doesn't matter if he hasn't played a game yet, they want him dead. And I personally can't wait for Matt Nagy to force a conservative play-calling scheme to bring about one of the blandest offenses in football. And staying with it for at least a month. I expect the calls for Fields to start will be louder than Guaranteed Rate Field in October. And it's probably for good cause. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll drunkenly stumble into the playoffs again, but the bigger concern for them is getting out of Soldier Field. They're looking for new digs, and there's plenty of land available in Arlington Heights. With how badly that renovation was botched, I don't blame them for that either. They should see uninspired football in a more inspired setting. The NFC is pretty tight in a lot of aspects. A logical person would just sit back and let it all develop, but I'm an impulsive bastard. I need to make shitty predictions that backfire quickly. The NFC East will surprisingly not change hands again, and it will be Washington that pulls it out. The NFC North is still Packers territory, however. The NFC South, I hate to say it, but Brady and the Buccaneers have it on lockdown. The NFC West, though? That's tough, but I'll have to say San Francisco bounces back if they're healthy. For the wildcards, I'm rolling with Seattle, New Orleans, and the Rams. Once again, many teams can be considered for these three slots. With that being said, I should shut the hell up. It's time for some fucking football. SoFi Stadium gets its debut. It's a majestic place, one where Matthew Stafford can have his fantastic revival. Look at him sling the ball with ease. One look at that man and he exudes body language that's elated to be free from Detroit. Think of this game like the Harlem Globetrotters against the Washington General. The Rams put on a good show, the fans leave happy, they get a win, and LA looks like a strong contender for the NFC West title. But what about Chicago? They were only good at jobbing to the star of the show. Matt Nagy is serious about using Justin Fields as a glorified gadget player, isn't he? There are a few recent examples of this. Lamar Jackson tied to Joe Flacco and Jalen Hurts tied to Carson Wentz. You know what these pairings had in common? They didn't fucking work. If you're serious about developing Fields, let him sit and learn the playbook. This token chintzy shit doesn't work unless you have a good game plan. Do any of you believe that the Bears have that now? Fuck no. Things were riding high for the Bengals after last week's win. It felt almost cathartic. Now up against their old Red Rifle, Cincy will be looking to start an unprecedented 2-0. The gods must have heard of their foolish ambitions. The first strike will come as a warning shot to Andy Dalton. He would be taken out of the game early for a knee injury that could be long-term. Bears fans were clamoring for Justin Fields. Well, now you get your wish. You'll get to see your quarterback as raw as he can be, and cheer him doing so. This game would not be the result of Fields, however, but the Bears' defense. Joe Burrow was looking promising, wasn't he? How about he goes up against a stout Bears unit that's wrecked better QBs than him? 3 interceptions on 3 straight throws. Even against a bad offense like Chicago's, that's a death sentence. Cincy can try to come back all they want, but it'll be for naught. Bears win. Back to reality, Bengals. It was nice knowing you seemed to be good for once. Justin Fields, a top prospect from Ohio State. Bears fans have been begging for him to start with the uninspiring play of Andy Dalton. It's way too damn early, but the time has come. Fields fever is spread across Chicago. Its symptoms are a god-awful offensive line and a play caller using a stick to douse a burning house. Justin, I hope you have good insurance. You're gonna die! Perhaps that policy will cover you better than the O-line did. Maybe it's playing better than Matt Nagy forcing long developing plays making Justin run for his life. In Cleveland, Fields fever leads to the killing fields. The result is 9 sacks and 47 yards of total offense. 1 net passing yard. Level fuck, Nagy, put Fields back in the oven. He's nowhere near ready yet. The Browns just had to basically exist on offense and it's an easy win. They'll take the glorified bye week. I mean, the Bears defense tried, but they can't keep that up for 4 quarters. That's it, Justin Fields is being sent to die. Matt Nagy is throwing him out again against Detroit to win. So you mean to tell me that the Bears emphasized the rushing game and team defense? They didn't force Fields to play over his head this week. By Virginia McCaskey's undead corpse, it's like they should have been doing last week! It does come with the asterisk of being against the Lions, who personify how shit the Fords are at running a team. Red zone opportunities. Repeated red zone opportunities. You're supposed to score points on those? What's a good drought for sheer ineptitude over there? Like 4? So they don't have to give the ball back to the Bears because they're trying to be nice. That's shocking. About as much as the fans still wanting Matt Nagy dead. I don't blame them with David Montgomery dying from overuse as a result. No matter the form the Raiders show at the beginning of the year, they will shank you in an alleyway and run off with your hope. Been doing it to their fan base for years, for God's sake. Matt Nagy nearly did it with Chicago until he got beaten up by an angry mob. He's forced to start Justin Fields and delegate play calling, the poor bastard. Fields was more of a game manager, as he should be early in his career, but he did enough to win in that regard. The real strength on the Bears is in defense. Oh yeah, Khalil Mack is playing his old team and kicking ass. Las Vegas rolling snake eyes at the craps table on offense. It's like they used to do in Oakland. This game was as embarrassing to the organization as John Gruden mocking DeMaurice Smith in an email 10 years ago. John, I guess you should start grinding on a groveling session considering the modern climate. There are many great traditions in the world of football. Dallas Cowboy fans never shutting the fuck up about their team. Roger Goodell being a clueless anti-football pussy. And Aaron Rodgers walking into Chicago and making the Bears his bitch. It's a comfort to all of us in the NFL. Green Bay is all but a guaranteed win in their lap, which unfortunately might be going away in the near future. Not for what the Bears are doing, though. That offense is unsurprisingly still shit. Justin Fields just isn't ready for a full-time role yet. They've greatly limited the already limited offense, and playing a quality team leaves them flawed and desperate for big defensive plays. Be shocked that it didn't work out again here. Green Bay maintains tradition. Rodgers still lives rent-free at Soldier Field. There is one thing I have to disagree with you on, Aaron. You don't own Chicago. The McCaskies do. And they know how to torture that fan base in crueler ways than you could ever imagine. Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears saw how fast the Jets had destroyed Zach Wilson and need to keep pace if they want to break records. I wasn't a fan of Justin Fields coming out of college, but the Bears have done him no favors whatsoever. It's one thing to force him to play teams he's not ready to go against, but they're not even trying to cater to his strengths. They're trying to force him into the same pigeonhole as they did Dalton, Foles, and Trubisky. With every bad line protection to rushed passes to giving him fucking misinformation about the opposing team, they destroy his confidence. Tampa Bay secondary is fucked to hell and back with injuries, and they still had a field day against this worthless offense. Tom Brady just had to sit there and scratch his ass most of the game, and collect his 600th career touchdown in the process. That's how ugly this game got. Fields is now realizing a cold truth. The Bears are where quarterbacks go to die, and he's the next victim. There is great news coming out of Chicago. No, it's not a player returning from injury, but a necessary subtraction. Matt Nagy is now coaching against the 49ers due to COVID protocols. Now the Bears can play the forbidden football plays. The type of football where Justin Fields doesn't look like he was gored by a bull. Mean to tell me he has talent? Holy shit, I wouldn't have guessed he can run out of the pocket since the Nagy offense considers it a mortal sin. Look at his electric running. This is the kind of offense that Bears fans were begging for. And is also damning since we can see said offense is being restricted due to incompetence. All they need to do is beat San Francisco and they can call it a perfect day. They didn't win? What the hell do you mean they didn't win? The 49ers have all the offensiveness of Mr. fucking Rodgers. How does the Bears defense fall apart when the offense manages to do something? How did they not get a sack without Khalil Mack? Well, I guess this is how we're doing things nowadays. At least Fields didn't look like shit for once. This was one of the most heinous displays of ref ball I've seen in years. As a fan of the game of football, the sport was delivered a massive black eye due to a level of rigging that would put third world dictatorships to shame. Normally, the Chicago Bears and Pittsburgh Steelers would engage in a contest that would be seen as legitimate, but this was before everything fell to shit in a handbasket. Early on, there were some borderline decisions made, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Pittsburgh had a sizable lead, and the Bears had a sizable handicap called Matt Nagy on them. But then we get to the second half, and the bullshit commences. Chicago somehow manages to do this thing called offense. I know it's shocking to me as well. Justin Fields is flashing his talent and throws a touchdown to Jimmy Graham, who's somehow still a thing. But hold on a second, the refs have money on the Steelers, obviously. This is apparently a low block, even though they barely touch Watt and it's in the line box itself, so it should be legal. Did you expect Fields to get calls that every other QB gets? No, he's used to getting killed, right? Zebras are Giants fans too, you know, they want that high draft pick. 4 points are shaved off the score. Somehow both of these teams aren't being absolute garbage on the offensive side of the ball. And I guess they can let the Bears score points for once. Fine, they need to keep the game close to ward off suspicions. Pittsburgh gets the ball back and Deontay Johnson is pushing off the Bears defender? This is obviously defensive pass interference. No, there's no favoritism here. The NFL just hates defenses. It just conveniently allowed the Steelers to gain 3 extra points off of it. The Bears are still fucking up everything in sight, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. Pittsburgh just needs to field this punt cleanly and... oh boy. This is gonna be controversial, isn't it? He's losing control of the ball before he hit the ground. Damn it, I wanted peace! The refs will make it up to Pittsburgh, though. Pittsburgh gets it back and... oh no, not a sack on 3rd down! They need something to tack on Chicago quick!
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Are you fucking kidding me? This is taunting? How the hell is this a penalty? He's just looking at the goddamn sideline and didn't say anything! Are we seriously in a state of the league where defenders are punished by simply staring in a certain direction for a few seconds? If you want to penalize something, how about a fine for the ref that channeled Chris Pronger and fucking hip-checked the defender as he went to throw the flag? Add 3 more incredibly undeserved points for Pittsburgh that could just as well be called hanging chads. Even then, Chicago is witnessing the talent that was advertised of Justin Fields at the draft. They need to beat both the Steelers and the refs today. And they're so close to doing so. They score a touchdown to take the lead, even after all the rigging. A horrible day. Thank God that Robert Quinn has been bought because he keeps lining up in the neutral zone. If you're hearing this, Robert, the check will be in the mail tomorrow. The Steelers kick a field goal and false hope consumes me whole. What a goddamn travesty of a game. If I'm Matt Nagy, I'm going scorched earth on this bullshit since I'm probably getting fired soon. The Chicago Bears should have won this game. They had it stolen from them. As a fan of football itself, I'm infuriated. The match is tainted with the stench of bullshit, and absolutely nothing's going to be done about it. I am really starting to hate this league. See you next week. The Ravens have had a very tough season. Injuries have ravaged their lineup, but they found a way to persevere despite underlying warnings. Lamar has flaws, but he's been the catalyst for this winning. They're gonna need a new hero this week. He's out against Chicago due to illness. I know what you're thinking, but it's not one of those things you just shit out after a few days. But don't worry, Baltimore. They have a new product they've released on the shelves just for this situation. I can't believe it's not Lamar Jackson, also known as Tyler Huntley. He may be imitating Lamar, but Matt Nagy is imitating an NFL head coach. The result is slop that pigs would turn their head at. Somehow, Justin Fields is even worse than Huntley is. At least Huntley's got the excuse of coming in at the last minute for an ill starter. What's Chicago's alibi? They're without key players on defense, but defense isn't the issue. You had a fucking bye week to prepare. Why are you having so much trouble against this shit? Even worse, they managed to kill off Fields after letting him take a beating. Great going, lads. Now for Andy Dalton to throw a random touchdown off the bat to bring Chicago to the pits of despair. Despair, you say? Why's that? It's because every win means nothing changes for the Bears. With how rough Baltimore has been on offense, even with Justin Tucker taking the lead, nothing is precious. Well into the fourth, the Ravens are about to finish off a gritty win as Chicago tries their worst to pull off the unthinkable. All Baltimore needs is a stop on 4th and 11.
Dalton from the pocket. Way open is covered! Makes a catch! And that...
All that effort just to blow a tire on that coverage? Good job, Chicago's now up by 4. They'll need Huntley to open up I can't believe they committed pass interference on a terrible throw. They'll need to purchase I can't believe the Bears defense is folding. And I can't believe Sammy Watkins got something besides an injury. And a little something extra at the register. Why is Matt Nagy still coaching the Bears? Don't give me injuries. Baltimore is practically dead and somehow got extremely lucky by playing you. The rest of the AFC North is glaring at Chicago. They pissed themselves. Big time.
You blew it, boy! You really blew it!
We can force Washington to end tradition and change their name, yet we are still subjected to watching the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. Couldn't they have at least pushed this game to the 4 p.m. window so we could all pass out for a few hours after dinner? Like most disasters in Chicago, it's a mismatch of misinformation and confusion. Rumors were swirling about Matt Nagy's overdue firing as coach after this game. They tend to be taken with sincerity when they're told by a Pulitzer-winning reporter. And it's exacerbated when people are chanting "Fire Nagy" not only at Bulls games, but at his son's high school football matchups. Chicago then returned to quietly stewing about how terribly run the Bears are as George McCaskey reiterated that they are accountants. And firing a coach in the middle of the year isn't financially efficient. You may have noticed I haven't mentioned anything about the game itself so far. Would you rather me lecture you about how pathetic it was? Are checkdowns on 3rd and 32 considered to be peak football? The only positive thing I'll say is that Dan Campbell has embraced the spirit of the tank. With how badly he botched the play calling and game plan, it's the kind of ineptitude we haven't seen out of a coach since Freddie Kitchens. Chicago's final obnoxiously long drive? Oh man, Salvador Dali's envious of seeing a clock this mangled. The Bears won out of spite for themselves. Detroit is miserable since they're still winless. Chicago is stuck with Matt Nagy as coach for another few weeks, and everyone who watched even a second of it feels like they wasted their time. No one won. Except for the NFL, because we'll willingly see this slop. The Bears are in panic mode. They barely grazed by the skin of their teeth against Detroit, and Matt Nagy is tiptoeing through minefields throughout Chicago. Andy Dalton's getting another start against Arizona, but there's a big problem, boys. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are back, and they want victims. What a better example to show the world that they have returned to the field than with a stomping against the Bears. No one gives a shit about them. In fact, you're doing both Chicago and New York City huge favors by helping them to lose. The Red Rifle was out here firing blanks as empty as the Soldier Field renovation. 4 interceptions took them out relatively quickly, despite trying to claw back in over and over again. It was clear as day. The Cardinals hold serve on the number 1 seed as the Bears simply hope that this is the end. Silly them. The NFC wildcard race is a wasteland of mediocrity. The misery's going to continue on for you for a while longer. If you're lucky, people will get fired this time. Cherish this, Packers fans. This may be the last time Aaron Rodgers successfully invests more of his hard-earned reputation into owning the Chicago Bears. In the hallowed field known as Lambeau, there will be more of the same. Chicago made one crucial mistake. Robert Quinn tried to taunt Aaron Rodgers after a sack in the first quarter. Do not tempt him. He will unleash hell. Like most of his career, Rodgers is straight up balling. Justin Fields may be back, but he's an amateur compared to Packer greatness. Look at Aaron effortlessly sling the ball wherever he wants and be convinced of his majesty. It is destiny for Wisconsin. When they see the Bears on the schedule, their eyes light up like Lori Lightfoot seeing a social program. There's going to be a clinic taking place, and it involves maintaining NFC North supremacy. It would have been a hell of a lot uglier too if the Packers' special teams didn't decide to drool in the corner for most of the game. Fields at least tried, but there was no chance for Chicago. Green Bay is a number 1 seed to fight for. The pylon in front of them simply needed to be run over. I still believe Rodgers would be a significantly better owner of the Bears than the McCaskeys. He'd at least give Chicago a discount double check on parking or something. We can all agree this year has been insanely fucked for the NFL. Most games like the last one we recap feel like they're on some kind of drug cocktail. It's exhausting to follow this league some weeks. The only benefit is in memes fresh out of the oven. You thought it couldn't get worse. An old friend has reemerged onto the scene. Corona-chan is back from her lengthy vacation and wreaking havoc on every sports league throughout America. The NFL has felt her wrath hard. You may have noticed all the coughing last week. It was for good reason. Over 150 cases in the league over a 5-day span. It's not Pokemon to catch. Coronavirus is running a train throughout multiple organizations. Cleveland and the Rams have over 25 players in COVID protocol. Washington has over 20. Other teams like the Bears, Texans, and Lions are getting wrecked as well. 8 teams are in enhanced COVID protocols. This is the worst case scenario we were fearing last season, and we're seeing it happen in front of our eyes. The NFLPA pleaded with the league for games to be postponed, but of course they waited until the last moment. In a shocker, the Shield cared more about game integrity than cold hard cash. The Saturday Browns and Raiders tilt has been pushed to Monday. Seahawks versus Rams and Reskins versus Eagles have been rescheduled for Tuesday. We have it again in doubleheader form, boys! Tuesday night football! Any chance we can get a Wednesday night game? For all the glorious memes? Paying attention to the Chicago Bears is like watching a grandparent die of cancer. It's horrifying and no one should have to go through with it, but it's an inevitability of life. On a cold, dreary Monday night against the Vikings, it was as if I saw an entire city wither into decay. Chicago itself was limping into this matchup. Injuries and COVID took out their entire starting secondary. Adding insult to backups and practice squad fodder, several of the assistants were out as well. So they must suffer through torture. Matt Nagy calling plays on offense. Oh, they're offensive, all right. Children are watching, Matt. Do you want them to suffer through this uninspired dreck? It wasn't like Minnesota did much of anything. Even for Kirk Cousins and his notorious awfulness on Monday Night Football, it was superseded by bearing down to purgatory. Whatever chances Chicago had were either squandered away or hampered by ref ball. Oh, the ref ball. I bet the Bears know a thing or two about that, don't they? It was a miserable game that was even more miserable for anyone who bothered to watch. And for surviving the credit sequence, the Vikings get a gift. A 500 record. I know you're bummed out, Bears fans, but think of the charity you're going to be giving the Giants in next year's draft.
मुझे एक मौका दे दो, प्लीज मुझे एक और मौका दे दो।
Chicago Bears eliminated.
There's nothing like football being played in a winter wonderland. The frozen tundra of Chicago playing host to an irrelevant match with the Seahawks. It's always a good time, but the hell do you mean it's in Seattle? Some kid's having fun with play game in Madden, isn't he? I can reinforce this belief with the Bears starting quarterback today. 3 beautiful words we haven't said in a while. Big Dick Nick. He has returned from his voluntary exile thanks to several injuries. And he will deliver Chicago an efficient game in this Christmas season. To be fair, it is against Ken Norton Jr.'s antivirus, but the offense is showing something it rarely has all year. Life. The same can't be said for Seattle. For years they have been getting bailed out by a relentless rushing game and Russell Wilson pulling 20 rabbits out of his ass. They no longer have such luxuries these days. They may be leading in the second half, but in the greatest shocker of them all, the offense stalls out and Chef Russ is cooking duds. Golden opportunities to extend their lead are squandered whenever they arise. The only consistency on the Seahawks is shooting themselves in the foot. Even on defense, against an offense as putrid as the Bears, they find ways to implode. At the end of the day, it all comes to a head as Chicago pushes forward with 2 minutes left.
Pulls end zone, and this time it is caught by guess who? Jimmy Graham!
But hold up, St. Nick has a gift for you too, Seattle.
Pulls, design roll. Pulls, back in the end zone, and it's Demir Bird, and he makes the catch and converts!
The last tank bowl of the season. It's a special time for the New York Giants. No matter who loses, the Giants win. But they know the stakes of this pivotal jockeying for draft position. When you willingly start Mike Glennon, you already know you're losing more than this game. You're losing dignity. And it's all for that fantastic tank. The Bears might be starting Andy Dalton, but they might as well have been starting a wooden plank. They still would have won by multiple scores. The fucking Afghan government put up a more valiant defensive Kabul than the G-men did in this game. You. Yes, you. Sitting in a chair on the toilet watching this shit threw for more yards on Sunday than the Giants did. The definition of insanity is doing the same shit repeatedly and expecting different results. But wait, this is different. Didn't you hear Joe Judge's rant about how there are like 2 practice squad players that want to be on the Giants? He's tough and no nonsense because he's from Philly. And he'll pelt you with batteries if you question his methods. If ownership won't get the message that this is a clown show, maybe a former player or two could scream it to them. Dave Gettleman's an incompetent piece of shit? How is this supposed to be news? Both of these coaches are getting fired at the end of this game, so who fucking cares? Andy Dalton versus Kirk Cousins in another pure shit show of fantastic proportions. The epitome of wasted seasons thrown in front of you for observation and eventual death. In the typical Minnesota Vikings style, they don't do a damn thing until it's far too late to change anything. This week is the same situation. They're relatively neck and neck with the Bears, which isn't shocking since neither have anything to play for. But Andy Dalton's red rifle fires a blank to Pat Pete, who returns it for a touchdown. That momentum allows the Vikings to win nothing but emptiness in a worse draft position. Well done, Minnesota. You pissed away golden opportunities left and right. This is what you get for thinking the same shit that failed in years past was going to work over and over again. I'm getting too worked up over this. Let's throw both these teams into the pit and call it a day. This has been a season. So many twists and turns that it's hard to conceive with the naked eye. If you were looking at this year seriously, it was absolutely exhausting. But do you know the true bounty to cherish? The memes. It was fucking gold for this economy. Thanks to incredible collapses, fantastic comebacks, Urban Meyer's coaching tenure, and whatever the fuck Antonio Brown did in the Jets game. Everyone with a pulse knew that the Bears making the playoffs last year was the worst case scenario for them. Even worse when management made a play to prolong their tenures by trading a ransom to draft Justin Fields. Let me throw a formula out there and you can decide the rest. When you take a terrible offensive line, then add in a quarterback carousel no one likes, multiply it by a rookie the Bears are forcing into a system that doesn't fit him at all, then divide that by the number of times they tried to kill Fields on long developing plays. You get a quarterback the team is trying to ruin. It's one thing when Fields is still raw, but they're not even giving him a chance to develop. So why did you franchise Allen Robinson? So he can do nothing? The defense can't bail them out forever, they're being sent to the infirmary. Wonderful, a wasted season for a team that's been the poster child for keeping family away from business. Nagy and Pace were fired a year too late. Great. They weren't the real issue. The problems are in Ted Phillips and the McCaskies. And they're still here. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are the new victims, GM and head coach. I can't tell if they were the best people available or if the Bears were too cheap to change out the Matt and Ryan business cards. Aaron Rodgers might say he owns you, but Chicago begs for it to be real. He'd be an infinitely better owner than the McCaskies are.